Welcome to Xogot's modular series on 3D game development. This video will cover setting up player controls. While you can use a connected keyboard or controllers, Xogot has some virtual controls that are great for testing. To enable that, you just come over into the settings and then head to the input devices area, virtual controller. I'm going to turn on the controller. And you can see there are virtual controls for both thumbsticks, for several different buttons. I'm going to leave the thumbsticks enabled and also button A, and I'm going to turn off the additional buttons because I'm not going to be using them. And then just close. Now, for the virtual controls to do anything, we need to have a movement script for the player. Now, I'm just going to use a built-in template to get the basic player movement. So with my player node selected, I'm going to tap on the script icon. You can see that it's set to use a template. There are a few templates you can choose right here. I'm using basic movement, and I'm just going to choose my script location. If I wanted to change the name, I can, but it's fine. So I'm just going to create that. The basics of the script here that are just the default built-in script. We have the class for the character body 3D, which is the node type of the player. We have a couple constants, which are settings that aren't going to be changing across the course of the game. So they will be a little bit more efficient in terms of processing. Then we have physics process. Physics processing happens at a fixed rate, so it keeps the physics smooth no matter what the frame rate happens to be. We have an if statement for dealing with gravity. We have an if statement for when the jump action happens and the player's on the ground so they can jump. And then we have an area that is specifically handling accessing the input for our left, right, top, and down actions, and then applying that to the actual direction and the velocity using the speed constant. And then move and slide is a method that actually makes the player move based on the rest of the script. So that's what's going on. Now, it's a best practice to actually use your own actions instead of just the built-in because it gives you complete control over what input each action accepts. And it also lets you use more descriptive names, which makes your script easier to follow, both for you and for any collaborators. So I'm going to go through that process right now. If we come back over to the settings, we can change from general to the input map. Now, the input map is really powerful. It lets us create actions with a variety of inputs. Then we only need to refer to the action in a script instead of every single input type. So it makes it really easy to add input and have them still apply to the code that you already have. So I'm here in the input map, and I'm going to click on the plus to create my first action. This one is going to be move forward, and I'm going to add it. Now, this is an empty action, so to actually have my action, I'm going to click on it and then add action event, and I can choose what sort of input I want to have. It might be that I'm doing the keyboard keys, so I might select W and create. I might be using, instead of the keyboard keys, I might be using the joypad axis. And so in this case, I'd probably be doing the left stick up. And so create. And I can add other actions to this as necessary. And I'm going to just repeat this for the other actions that I need. So plus to add my action, this is going to be move backward, add, going to tap on the action, and then I'm going to add the action events that I want. So backwards is going to be S for my keyboard key. I'm going to create that. The plus again, switching that to joypad. And this is going to be left stick down, create. Then I'm going to go back to the top, plus to create my new action. This one is going to be move left, add, and I'm just going to go through repeating this process for any input that I want to be using. I just want to mention it's a good practice to avoid spaces in the name. You may have noticed for all of my actions, I used an underscore instead of a space. And even though it's not in the script right now, just setting up for later, I'm going to add some actions for rotating the player. All right, so my actions are all set for each type of input that I want, so I can close out of there. So now I need to update the script to actually use those actions. I just need to change this out for the actual action name. This one is going to be for the jump action, and I want to do the same thing over here. So this is going to be move left, move right, move forward, and then move backward. So all of my actions are in place. All right, now I should mention that the order of these actions is based on the assumption that the player is facing negative Z. So if I come over to my player, notice the direction they are facing. So we have the Z axis, and actually, if I switch over here, I can look in my front view. So Z is facing towards us, Z negative is facing away from us, and the axolotl is facing in that direction. But actually, that is making me notice that the position of the collider is a little bit off in this direction. So I am just going to correct that and double check from one of the side views. So that looks fine. All right, so my player is facing the correct direction. My input is all set up properly in the script. All right, so next up, I'm just going to change the constants to exported variables. Now, if I wanted to make sure I have the best performance and I know that these numbers aren't ever going to need to change, I already know what I want them to be, they're not going to be different in different contexts, then I should probably leave them as constants. But if I'm not sure what numbers are going to work here, or if there's something that's going to need to change in different contexts, I might want to use an exported variable instead. So I'm just going to switch this out to at export. And that's an export variable. This type is going to be float. Oh wait, wrong place. On the other side over here, the type is going to be a float. And I'm going to do the same thing down below here. Now, because these are at the top of the script, they're global variables, so they'll apply to everything in the script, or can be used by everything in the script. And this is also a float because it's a decimal. And the fact that they're exported means that once I save my script, they are going to be available when my player is active over here inside of the inspector, so that I can actually change these at any point without necessarily having to go back into the script. All right, so my script is all set. Again, I'm going to hold off on the turn left and turn right actions for another video, but let's just see how this looks. If I preview the game, I can use my control to strafe, move forwards, move backwards. I can use the A to do some jumping. If I want to actually change my variables while this is live, I can switch over to the remote view, make sure the player node is active, and maybe my jump velocity is going to be 10. So now when I jump, you can see that's going significantly higher. Maybe I want my speed to be higher as well. Maybe I'm going to put that up to 7. And so now when I move, that's faster than it was before. So the exported variables are just really helpful when you're trying to figure out what is going to work best for your different settings. All right, so there's a lot more you can do to customize the default script, so have some fun experimenting, and we'll be back with more videos.